You talked about Sark. I would be remiss if I did not ask you about your opinion on Brent Venables. And what is your vibe from him? Do you think he's the guy that can get the job done there?
Yeah, with Brent, obviously there's like a soft spot there because of like where he was with the program in the 2000s when he was Bob's defensive coordinator. He was the co-DC when we won the national title in 2000 when I was 10 years old, but I'm not bitter. Obviously there's like a lot of, good feelings there. And the early thoughts that I had about Brent as a head coach, especially like I think he was 49 when he took the head coaching position here, and obviously he's north of 50 now. That's not exactly the norm for a first time head coach. Um, my thoughts are generally the same about him in that he's an adult. We've had kind of a bro running the program who doesn't really want to justify his expenditures to anybody. Like Lincoln Riley is just a millennial stereotype. If you've ever worked with millennial employees, I am one. I try not to be that, but I mean, I'm all about like chain of command and everything. But he's like, yeah, I want all this money and I don't want to tell you what I'm going to do with it. And I shouldn't have a boss.
Sounds
And
like
that's how
Lane Kiffin down at Ole Miss.
exactly. And I mean, now Ole Miss lost the Coke money, I should say the
Mm,
Coca-Cola money.
yeah,
Like, let me say
clarify,
that,
please.
um, which that could be potentially hazardous. But no, with Brent, my thoughts are generally the same. He was either going to be the next great head coach at OU, or he was going to set it up for the next guy. I'm a big believer in like you are just the God chosen one to be like the next Bud Wilkinson, the next Barry Switzer, and the next Bob Stoops, like guys that have statues on campus. Brent had a tall task to do. It wasn't just here, OU's got a really cool offense, just teach them how to tackle because they have not done that for 10 years. It was more than that. It was having to reestablish the identity of the program because as great as the offenses have been over the last 10 years and even well before that, OU has always been an innovative school on offense and defense, and they kind of lost their way. And a lot of their mojo got siphoned out as a result when you go into playoff games against Clemson, LSU, Georgia, Alabama with, extremely talented offenses with NFL guys all over the place, but you don't have anybody that can tackle. You don't have anybody with the size measurables necessary to go up against those programs. Brett had to fix all that. And it's not just defense, it trickles down over to the offense of like you're just a finesse team. If we get a lead on you, there's nothing that your awesome offense can do against us. And that takes a long time. Some of that was an uphill battle because big time, especially defensive recruits, don't want to go play in the Big 12. So, it wasn't necessarily all OU's fault based on what they had been unable to accomplish. Some of it was just conference affiliation. That obviously got rectified. But, so far, Brent has knocked it out of the park. And it might sound silly because we went 6-7 in 2022, but if you just kind of look at that season, not even with a fine tooth comb, like you could understand why Brent was playing a bunch of guys that just had no business playing or starting at a place like OU. And a lot of that was under Lincoln Riley's watch. And he just said, yeah, 2022 is kind of a wash. He even had it in his contract for his first year that if he got to 7 wins, he would get a bonus. And obviously they didn't reach 7 wins, but that goes to show you that even he knew at the time of taking the job that, bro, winning more than 7 games with my system, the way I run a team with this talent is going to be a miracle. And it damn near was. They were in a handful of those games and they ended up losing them. So he goes into year 2 and wins 10 games, beats Texas, has really good chances to get back to the Big 12 title game, ultimately doesn't. But there's still kind of that lack of experience. There's a lack of development. There's a lack of talent that he is still bringing in, and this is all coinciding with he's had top 10 classes ever since he stepped onto campus. And we just flipped a guy that was verbally committed to Texas, 5-star tackle by the name of Michael Fasusi. And then it's just an example of Brent is recruiting at a rate that Bob didn't even do. Like Bob really let his foot off the gas in terms of recruiting in the 2010s, and it shows. Brent is doing something here that potentially has never been done before from a recruiting talent standpoint. And it's just going to come down to if they can win 8 games this year. 8-4 is not something OU fans are excited for ever. But year one in the SEC with this schedule, with basically a kind of a new offensive line and a brand new starter at quarterback, that will do so much for the program because it will show that, yeah, they belong. All they need is experience at some key positions, and they're bringing in talent. And if you go 8-4, like you're not going to see a huge drop off on the recruiting trail, because at 8-4, you've probably beaten maybe LSU on the road, or maybe Alabama at home, or maybe Tennessee at home. Like you've had a big game success in that season. So with Brent, everything is trending in the right direction, but this year is so key. You cannot have a disaster, because that could potentially erode away all the good feelings he's kind of been able to set up so far.